First question I'll ask, and then everybody else can pitch in, and that would be to Brian. And that is a question that I think a lot of folks around the state are wondering, and that is, how important is it to have the supplier network nearby the plants? And what are the kind of things that people need to do to be considered a reliable supplier for Chrysler?
Yeah, there's certainly value to having suppliers close by for response time and just interaction from our workforce to the workforce at the supply base. But it's not the overriding thing, so there has to be some compelling reasons, you know, to bring us to a point where we make a decision that it's somebody local versus somebody that's not local. And I will say, overall, that we have an advantage with our new leadership, our former leadership, and there's nothing, I understand the international comments and some of the other things, but just as one of the panelists alluded to, making things, and Mo, I think, and again, I need to give credit to Mo. Mo's been great for us and helping us, but he would attest that there's a different tone in our company as far as the sensitivity to the need to be able to make things locally, meaning in the U.S. and Midwest, and even in Indiana. So expertise, we find right now our supply base is strained a bit for having technical expertise. Investment, financially, they're struggling. We certainly put them in a bad way, but they have a need for capital and they have a need for technical resources. And if those two are there, and we have a lot of decisions to make over the next 3 months on the 9-speed transmission, so there's opportunity out there.
I also want to mention that we have another perspective on the auto industry here with us in the audience. That's my good friend Perry Watson, CEO of Lexus of Mishawaka, who's been here with us today as well. Does anybody have any questions for the panel regarding issues of concern to you? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question for Catherine Molden. Catherine, does MEMA have any initiatives or programs geared toward making its members better equipped to be suppliers to the electric vehicle or HEV industry?
OESA, which is our original equipment affiliate in Detroit, does have a product council. I don't think they've taken a direct focus on working with our members to be able to better supply electric vehicles and the technology necessary to do that. I can bring that back to them. But one thing we have been working on is making sure our members know about the federal programs that are out there as far as loans, grants, funding opportunities, and things like that to be able to break into some of these advanced technology vehicles, including electric vehicles, federal battery programs, and things like that. But I will take your question back to my colleagues in Detroit.
Is the most important areas for training of future workers?
I'd say there are two main areas. First, in Columbus, Indiana, believe it or not, the IUPUC Ivy Tech campus down there, Ivy Tech and IUPUC are co-located. And although Purdue is in the name, we don't have an engineering degree program at that campus, and so we're working on that right now. As we continue to grow, we of course hire a lot of engineers, and having a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering down at that Columbus campus is really important to us. But additionally, technical training in the kind of skilled technical labor, the type that, prophetically we're here at Ivy Tech. Many of the jobs that we'll be needing, especially in Seymour, Indiana, will be those technical skill sets. And so increasing the skill set, the critical thinking, the math skills, and the technical hands-on training that are needed for those jobs is a large focus for us.
I certainly would agree with that. The other thing I would say, again, very supportive of her, we definitely need technical skills, no question about that. But the interesting thing is, and I've said this, I went to Purdue as well, and certainly think highly of engineering. But I've said this to my engineering staff over the course of various jobs over the course of time, and I might not get agreement from the rest of the panel here. But the reality is, in a job, at least that I've been exposed to, about 10% of their time is really technical, and 90% is interacting with people and helping them understand why it is they should do what they do. So one of the areas that I personally think needs to be improved a lot, and we work on it internally, is how to problem solve. And problem solve is a lot about communication and understanding. So, you know, and we've had some conversation with IUK and Kokomo, and I intend to have some more. But being able to, from a business perspective, there's a lot about how to do things from a business perspective inside a plant or a manufacturing operation that goes right down to the core operator as well as all those that are in support. So for us, Six Sigma is certainly a very good program. We have what we call world-class manufacturing, and that's not something we invented. It's something that comes actually out of Fiat via Japan, and it's based on the same kind of principles. But it focuses people on waste and has a very structured approach. So once we have them in this discussion and understanding, if we can get them in a better way of working with people, understanding how to communicate and recognizing problems, we'll solve things a lot faster.
You know, if I may, Brian, I mirror your comments there. Six Sigma is the tool by which we teach our workers at all levels, both the professional as well as the non-exempt level, how to critically think, teamwork, critical thinking, problem solving, vital skills, setting aside the technical requirements that we have. Six Sigma is a process by which you define a problem, you measure it, you analyze it, you improve it, and then you figure out how to control that improvement. And that type of training and technical skill set is a must, not just from our plant floor perspective, but all the way through the company.
I have a question for Mo, and that would be, you know, some years ago, you would hear some of the car companies who are located in Alabama or South Carolina say, well, it's more competitive down here than up in Indiana and Michigan. How is that now, and how can our state be viewed in that perspective?
Well, there's many arguments of why some of the manufacturers located in the South. I think there was a much cheaper labor market for sure is one of the issues, but the trade-off for that, I think it says why Subaru and why Toyota and why Honda located here in Indiana. They don't have the issues with launch because there's more trained people that are readily available in the job market. So I think that, you know, to some extent, the reasoning with the economics and all that, but again, we see, and I guess you're speaking maybe the right to work states, I don't know, but there's certainly a big issue in Indiana about that right now. But anyway, I think if that were true, you wouldn't see the three manufacturers I just mentioned coming to Indiana, or you wouldn't see solar panel manufacturers coming to Indiana, or you wouldn't see the numbers put out by the Indiana Economic Development Commission that we read in the Star on December the 30th, talking about all of this job growth, record numbers coming to Indiana. So I think Indiana has a lot to offer, and I think that's why you're seeing people locate here.
How do you see employment in your auto-related members over the next year or two?
I see growth. I already mentioned Bedford, and I mentioned TRW, and obviously when the new product comes online in Kokomo, through the revitalization of the east side of Indianapolis, I see growth there and investment. We have already read about the wind turbine manufacturer looking at Newcastle, Indiana. It can't be public knowledge yet, but there's a second and third phase to that, which includes Muncie and Indianapolis, which will be about almost 15,000 jobs coming to Indiana. So it does look great for manufacturing in Indiana, and I think the future is going to be strong. But a lot of it's because we're working together. We're working together, as Brian mentioned. We have a great partnership, not only with Chrysler, but the majority of our employees supplier sector or in the actual assembly or manufacturing.
With you two, was that back in '09? Was that a lot of time spent together working on how do we move this forward? How do we make it work for everybody involved, the workers, the company, across the board?
Well, I wasn't personally, and I can't speak for Brian, I wasn't personally sitting in Washington, D.C. with Chrysler and Fiat and people in my position.
But like back here.
But back here, we started some time ago because I think it was critical. We were a critical juncture in our life in Kokomo with Fiat coming into the picture. Where what were they going to do with Kokomo? They could have certainly shifted all the product offshore or across the borders. And I think we worked very hard together that when Fiat came to Kokomo, they saw what was there and they decided to invest in Kokomo and they decided to grow in Kokomo. And the result, I don't believe we're going to see product going out of Kokomo. I think we're actually going to see new product, which has already been announced, and potentially Fiat product being produced in Kokomo that's never been on shore before. So I think we work very well together.
I agree, and similarly, the actual work that was done in Washington was with Sergio Martin, our CEO, and General Woolfield mostly, and they certainly worked in the COW, Kendall Wins as well, but they worked very well together, and trust me, we were very supportive. So.
Mike, I have a question for you, really three questions. As relates to there being a breakthrough in battery technology to allow cars to go more than 100 miles, how close are we to the breakthrough where cars are able to get 400 to 500 miles per charge? Secondly, as relates to someone who is going to school, what would you tell them regarding what they need to be studying from a workforce perspective? And third, what kind of entrepreneurs or suppliers will you spin off or will you be looking for as the battery technology grows?
On the distance that these vehicles can go, I think that's a really limiting factor along with the charging infrastructure that we just don't have. So it doesn't make it overly attractive. There are combinations that will allow extending range. The Chevrolet Volt has a small engine plus a battery pack. Pure EVs, I think it's going to be a while before you can go 400 or 500 miles. The technology just is not there yet. But there are fuel cells, hybrid vehicles, a better battery charging system. You know, we all stop to get gas or a drink or a cup of coffee, and with fast chargers, you can recharge a battery fairly quickly. So, but I do think that's off a ways. You mentioned about a person going to school. We do have some assembly type jobs that you might traditionally think of in the automotive industry, but we have an awful lot of our, an awful lot of our jobs running product that are highly skilled. Part of the battery is mixing sophisticated ingredients a very precise way. We have coating operations that, if you remember the old magnetic tape days, it's kind of where this came from. You have a very thin piece of foil, and you put on a very thin layer of coating, lithium chemistry coating, and you have 30-meter ovens, fairly high temperature. So, and people operate these things, and they need the skills to know what they're dealing with, how to react, how to make changes, how to measure in microns, more technical skills. So I think the more technical thought processing kind of skills that she mentioned would be very helpful. The days in our business of just rote assembly are going away. Plus, when you work on the batteries, when we build a bus battery, it has significant current, and you have to kind of understand what you're dealing with, so you just don't grab both sides of the thing. And so you have to have safety precautions, people with knowledge doing this. Just one thing that struck me that we might do to help Indiana. Unfortunately, the lithium-ion development. It festered here and grew, but there's not a supply base of substance here. Most of the supply base is in Japan and some in Korea. And I do know for a fact that there are certain, if you take a real thin foil, we need aluminum and copper foil, we need mixed oxides, we need hard carbons. There's only one hard carbon maker in the world. So any way we could attract those kind of companies and really facilitate their landing in Indiana would be very helpful.
Good morning, my name is Carl Lissick. I represent the Department of Energy Clean Cities program, and my message is for Brian. Brian, our goal with Clean Cities is to reduce America's dependence on foreign oil. We've heard a lot about all the other competitors of yours promoting hybrids, electric vehicles, things like that. I just wondered if you could shed some light on what some of the alternative fuels Chrysler was potentially looking at implementing.
Yeah, we have taken a bit of a different posture with our CEO. Again, we are in recovery, right? So we're focused on certainly the near term and midterm. And in that period of time, we just don't have the capital to invest in a lot of R&D as it relates to both of those areas. However, we certainly have products that we're putting HEV in, and the Fiat 500 will have BEV coming out later this year. So we'll have via Fiat, which we're producing the Fiat 500 is out in dealerships now. In Toluca, Mexico, we make the engine in Dundee, Michigan. So it's a North American and certainly Midwest participation. So again, we have that. However, and again, this is certain, I understand the direction that we all need to go in general. But from our company's perspective and our CEO's perspective, Fiat has been very successful in developing and refining the combustion engine. And our CEO is not ready to give up on that. I think if you read his comments, and I've said with him many times to propose investments that he's been very good about giving in powertrain. But we have on the 1.4-cylinder engine that we do make for the Fiat 500, what we call multi-air, and it's an advanced combustion by virtue of how we control the combustion process through the air valving and so forth. We had about 10-15% fuel economy from the result of that. There's other things like that that we're pursuing, and you'll see our fuel economy is we're on target to meet all the requirements. And so, from a perspective, here's what I say. That I don't know everything by any stretch of the imagination, but by osmosis, I've been around this business a long time. I've seen about everything in responding to these conditions that change. And when I go back and we're making some decisions now about how to expand for our powertrain business to support our vehicles. And right now we're launching 2 new V6 plants, one in Michigan, one in Mexico, very successfully. But it's not enough from what we see. When I look at the last 10 years of our utilization of capacity and the investment in any kind of manufacturing, particularly auto, is very high. As you can say, $1.3 billion is a lot of money. So when we make those kind of decisions, we have to get it right. Unfortunately, we got it wrong a lot in the last 10 years. And we put money at both ends of the spectrum. So when I look at displacement, starting with our previous 1.8 liter engine all the way to our Hemis at 5.7, and I look at capacity utilization, reality, the closer you get, you can almost draw a normal distribution curve. There's things that happen on both ends of those displacements, the low end and the high end. We've had great things with the Hemi, and we've had times when the fuel economy, fuel prices drove everybody to the other side of the boat on this low end. But by and large, our capacity utilization has been in V6, and it's for the American vehicle that people like to buy in general. The weight, the combination. So we're focusing on refinement of the fuel, of the combustion of that engine in order to make something that is, again, for the distribution of the population. There's certainly the need on both ends of that and the adjustments. And who knows what happens in the world to change it, to completely shift it over. But for us, at our course of time in our company, that's where our focus is.
My question is for Catherine. Is there any particular legislation out currently that your organization supports to help manufacturers?
There's legislation that will be introduced very soon that we are interested in. It was introduced last Congress. Gary Peters from Michigan and Senator Stabenow, both from Michigan, have been working on legislation that will authorize the Freedom Car and 21st Century Truck Partnership programs of the Department of Energy and their Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Office. These are programs that are in existence today that don't have direct congressional authorization, meaning there's not a lot of congressional oversight on how DOE is spending the money, what type of research and development activities are happening. It's something, actually, Cummins is supportive as is Chrysler as well, that will provide more congressional direction on how DOE spends research and development dollars. This is money, this is federal funding opportunities that suppliers, that vehicle manufacturers have skin in the game to. They bring matching dollars to it. It's one of our top priorities. And what the research and development, it's a wide range of various technologies. Everything from clean diesel and lightweighting and advanced nanomaterials to hybrids and batteries and everything in between, just to make cars cleaner, make cars more fuel efficient, and help reduce our energy independence, or help increase our energy independence. And like I said, that hasn't been introduced yet, but that's something that we're working very closely with both Mr. Peters' office and with Senator Stabenow's office.
Phil?
How will the recent gas prices oversee the going to the fact that our automotive industry is short in long term?
You're just brave enough to take that one.
Well, I'll take it. We see sales ebb and flow with gas prices. And I don't know, so I think $4 is the magic line in the sand, or somewhere close to that, is when gas gets a little bit higher, people get nervous about buying SUVs and pickup trucks, and then look to the smaller market. Fortunately, we're starting to produce a lot of smaller vehicles on shore that were produced offshore before. When gas prices drop back down, I mean, I look at the folks in this room, and we all know when we ever thought that we'd say, man, $2.90, I'm glad gas is cheap, good God. I remember when I paid 20-some cents a gallon for it, and everybody, but it does impact it. It's something we don't have any control over. I think that's why, as Brian mentioned, I see the plants that I represent trying not just concentrate on one market. I mean, used to be, if you look at especially Ford, GM, and Chrysler, they were kind of all their eggs in one basket on trucks and SUVs, building bigger cars. And you know, in fact, we saw that many years ago. So many people in this room remember when a car was about 20 feet long and about 8 foot wide, and it was I don't know what the thing weighed, but they were monsters. And there was a publication written around 1945, and some of the folks might remember in this room, and there was a play on Broadway called A Streetcar Named Desire. There's a publication put out called A Small Car Named Desire. This publication said that maybe the American public doesn't want a car that weighs 4,000 pounds. Maybe the American public doesn't want a car that only gets 8 miles a gallon. Maybe they want a smaller car, more fuel efficient. Maybe they want something besides gasoline cars. In fact, that publication was put out by the UAW in 1949. So there's been a lot of talk over the years, but something we can't control, but it certainly impacts the market, is the price of gas. And even though, on a personal note, I applaud what I'm seeing going around the world, and I hope in Libya that the citizens of Libya get to have a government in that country one of these days. But quite frankly, in my personal opinion, unless we get away from dependence on foreign oil, we're in a spiral. I know for a fact that someday, it'll be probably after I'm gone, but someday cars will be produced that don't have gas combustion engines. They'll be electric cars or other varieties of propulsion, but they will still need to be manufactured. So the people that we represent will be doing this new type work, this new technology in the future, and we realize that. But we've got to grow, and we've got to continue to lead this world, and I think we'll do that. But back to your initial question, we just have to kind of ebb and flow with the gas prices, and again, Chrysler as well as the others have a wide variety of products to serve any portion of the spectrum wherever it is at fuel prices.
Again, certainly, as I mentioned already, the Fiat 500 gets almost 40 miles to the gallon, so it's a 4-passenger vehicle. It is very capable of. There is no reason for any of us not to be satisfied with the performance of a vehicle like that, whether it's fuel economy or performance. So the opportunity is there. We're also focused on the C segment. There's no question the small passenger car is going to be very important to the automotive industry and to Chrysler, and we're focused on the C segment as well as the small car segment. So we have a definite more products coming out there.
As good a job as these folks do every day in their plants and working hard and trying to create more jobs and create winning business formulas, there's also things that we have to do. I happen to serve on the Financial Services Committee, and as everyone at this table will tell you, if the entire financial system collapses, it doesn't matter what you do with your plant. You can do everything right, and you still go over the falls. So our obligation has been to try to rebuild the financial system and make sure we have one that is stable for years and years to come. And I think that's what you see, is a financial system that the growth that's occurring now is not growth that's based on ultra cheap credit or subprime loans or basically shoving stuff out the door that you're not sure how you're going to get paid for on the other side. The standards are much tighter. The loan reviews are also being watched more closely. And our job is to put a financial system in place that bears the test of time year after year after year. We passed a Financial Reform Act, and I can tell you the goal is to have the least amount of regulation necessary, but enough regulation to avoid what we've seen ever happening again. In effect, what we try to do is be an umpire to make sure that when it goes over the line, it's brought back, so that they don't pour their heart and souls into something and then see nobody able to buy anything. We had in the RV industry 3 primary financiers. All 3 of them in 1 week pulled out of the market because they were unable to finance anymore. So you had an entire industry that was the engine of Elkhart County, that their whole financing program disappeared in a week, that there was nobody who would provide loans for their products or dealer financing. So that's our obligation. And the other piece we have to get right is what was just talked about, the energy piece. There's no reason America shouldn't be energy independent. We have enough natural gas for that every vehicle on the road we could run on natural gas for the next 100 years. And I'll tell you what, Cummins would build the best natural gas engine. There's no question about it. These folks adapt to what product is out there. We have in Canada enough oil in the oil sands that they have more oil that's been discovered there than they have in all of Saudi Arabia. And so it's our job and your job to contact your representatives and to push hard so that America's energy independent. Because when we are, our industries grow, when we're energy independent and financially stable, there's nothing that our industries can't do. At this point, I just want to thank our panelists for the extraordinary kindness and showing up here today and being part of this. We want Indiana to be as diversified and to have as many lines in the water as we possibly can. But we never forget one of the key heartbeats of this state, and that's the automotive sector. And I think that in the years ahead, it's going to continue to grow. I know there's a lot of folks from different cities and counties and such that probably when you head down off the podium here, you'll be romanced by a number of people telling you that their city, their county, can provide you with the best workers and best trained workers in the world. And that is true across the board. So to all of you, thank you for what you do for our state. Thank you for what you do for our families. As all of you know, as Mo sees when he talks to his members, as Brian sees when he walks the shop floor, as Mike sees, as Teresa and Catherine, every one of those marks on an unemployment line is a friend and a family, a child who goes to school and wonders why mom or dad doesn't have a job. So we're totally committed to making sure we have full employment, that everybody has a chance to pursue the American dream. And as a last thing I'll say, for the first time in a long time, we saw the unemployment rate nationally drop below 9%. We hope it keeps heading down, and if you folks keep hiring people, we'll be heading in the right direction. Thank you very, very much for being here.